Hello, Super Horror family and guest. I recently went to Reddit and asked people to share their experiences with me if they were okay with having me share them here. And we received so many accounts. Some of them I've never even heard of before. They were incredible. So for this, the third episode of True Encounters, we are going to hear about someone's experience seeing things in the sky. Their message to me reads, "Hey Super Horror Show, I have a story on my profile, a sighting of a possible atmospheric beast. Feel free to share it. I prefer to remain anonymous, please, and thank you." Before I start reading this, I just want to quickly say I have no problem with people remaining anonymous. A person might be worried that friends and family will hear the story and mock them, and that would be unfair. You shouldn't be punished for sharing things with other people. So I want to thank you, especially anonymous person, for sharing your experience with all of us. The post is titled, Translucent Sky Snake. I saw a strange creature a few years back. Here's my story. My brother and a couple of friends were loading up the truck to drive out to a dark spot and watch the Perseids meteor shower. This was in 2014 or 2015. When loading the box of the truck with supplies, I noticed movement and looked up and said, "Hey, look, there's a meteor." Then everyone looked, and we all quickly realized it was no meteor. What we were witnessing in the street lamp light I could only describe as an undulating, snake-like creature. It was completely translucent, and we could see the stars through it. It just flew over the trees and out of sight in a matter of seconds. It had no discernible features. No head, eyes, mouth, or wings. I would guess it was 20 to 30 feet long, and maybe 3 to 4 feet wide. I remember thinking it moved in a way people inside a Chinese dragon costume would move. It looked like a biological creature, and moved with intention. Not a bag in the wind, not the northern lights. We were all sober. I have no idea what we saw. Has anyone on this subreddit witnessed something similar? Thanks. Now, this creature seen in the sky by itself was a very interesting occurrence, and the post officially ended here. But because this John Doe asked if anyone had seen something like this, and I had never heard of anything like this before, I had to check and see if anyone replied. There were a ton of replies. I'm not including every reply. I weeded out some and included only replies that I thought were significant. No names from the replies will be used. Some of these replies can be really short, and there's a lot of them, so you're going to hear a lot of "and thens" and "another person said." These replies were kept in order because some of them build on previous replies, and there's a certain flow to them. So I apologize for the uncharacteristic repetition, but I do feel by the end of the replies, they'll be worth it. Especially for people like me that have never heard of this phenomenon before. The replies begin. My dad claims to have seen something like this, only it wasn't as large. He says what he saw was only about 10 feet long, but still translucent. He believes he saw a demon, but we have no idea. Personally, I believe him, but I did not witness it. So this person's father believes he saw a spiritual entity. Remember, I've never heard of something like this before, so I'm just getting my bearings. Also, I'd like to point out it can be really hard to tell the size of something when it's in the sky. If you saw an airplane, could you tell me how big it was as it flew over us? Even the size of birds where I live can be difficult to gauge if they're far enough away. I know someone who claims to have seen something in the sky that looked like a dragon back in the 60s or 70s. I didn't ask for details though, as it seemed like a stretch. So now we have 3 people total, with the last stating they first heard of something like this and they were a skeptic, and the account is at least 50 years old, a point that might be important later. Now here things become even more mysterious. My siblings and I both saw, on a few occasions, a translucent flying thing in the sky, late on summer nights. It flew over us and moved like a ripple of a wave, distorting the fabric of the sky and the stars as it passed. It had a shape similar to a manta ray maybe. It was anomalous and indescribably odd, and I'm sure we'll never know what we saw. We saw it in Northern California. A few years ago, I scoured the web trying to find people who have seen similar things. Was it a cloaked ship? Was it sentient? I don't know. That account is incredible. Visuals aside, the idea of being a cloaked ship is very interesting. The government might want to disguise its tech as mystical creatures that would make anyone that claims they'd seen it look crazy. Another Redditor admitted they'd heard of these sky manta rays a couple of times. Then someone else brought up a documentary they'd seen. I saw a documentary once about these things and others like it, but I cannot for the life of me remember what it was called. I just remembered they called them skyfish or rods. You should look more into it. I know you're not the only one to have witnessed this kind of thing. My personal theory is they're likely just another animal, except they live on a different plane or dimension of reality, only occasionally slipping through. Sounds crazy, but 1,000 years ago, nobody knew much about microscopic life beyond vague theory. If you showed a microscope slide to Aristotle, they would have believed it was some kind of monster. So what I'm saying is just because we haven't discovered it yet, doesn't mean it's not there. All magic is science yet to be understood, and the more advanced it is, the more it seems like magic to a more dated, primitive eye. It's all relative. This is the first time in the chat that I'd seen these anomalies called rods, but others chimed in saying rods were seen often in the 90s. Someone in the chat replied saying rods are caused by bugs quickly flying by a camera when a picture is being taken. While this is good data, our John Doe saw this only with his eyes, so a camera trick can't be credited for this specific account. Now the next few comments in this subreddit bring up things that can actually be researched. There's even a link someone posted to an article that could be about this phenomenon. I'm going to post the links people put in their comments in the description for anyone that wants them. The first comment in this series reads, "I wonder if this is the one I saw. This woman did a documentary I really enjoyed about how many scientists believe they come out of the ocean and fly around. We think they're aliens, but really may just be organisms from the depths that can also fly. They're closer to energy blob amoebas or something. Having trouble finding it. Pretty sure it was on Amazon Prime." If anyone in the super horror family or watching this video on YouTube has seen this on Amazon Prime, please comment the name and I will put it in the description with your name next to it. No one replied to this comment with more information. Another person wrote, "Very interesting post. I've also heard references to sky snakes by a few astronauts. Your description made me think of that. Haha. They said they looked like weird translucent snake things flying up in our atmosphere. I wish I could remember which astronauts, but I'm guessing a Google search would bring it up. Either way, I hope you get answers." A few people knew what this person was talking about and wrote under their comment, "I believe you're thinking of astronaut Story Musgraves. Someone looked up Story Musgraves and actually reached out to him. I found his, Story Musgraves, video while doing research into the topic after my sighting. I found it very interesting as he was an astronaut. I also found an email to reach out to him and ask him more about this sighting. He seems to have changed his story from the video and just said it was a rubber seal off a spacecraft deployed in space. Now this struck me as suspicious. Astronauts are literally geniuses trained to be able to adapt to and overcome all kinds of difficult situations, and this astronaut claims they mistook a rubber seal for a space phenomenon. I don't see how an astronaut can mistake something so ordinary for something so extraordinary." Another Redditor feels because of the translucent appearance and shimmer of these potential beings, and their swimming type movement, they might have things in common with deep sea creatures. In the deep sea, we have some strange creatures, most bioluminescent, who can't exist anywhere else. My theory for a long time now, I think the sky and upper atmosphere, heck, even space, has living creatures too. They move like in liquid, and give light away, and we can sometimes see them. I also think that some UFO phenomena can be explained with living objects in the skies. Sorry if my answer sounds a little off, English is not my native language, but I hope you understand what I mean. This person's theories fit in nicely with other people that spoke about sky mantas. Then someone references Glimmerman. I've seen something similar-ish. I wonder if this is the Glimmerman hunters and hikers are seeing in the woods. Maybe his ship is cloaked like he is. I don't know. Both being invisible seems like chances are it's related. Glimmerman doesn't need to spend all of his time in the woods. If Glimmerman did have a ship, it would make sense for it to be cloaked using a similar method. Another person wrote, I think there's a NASA feed that shows the creature you're talking about. It's translucent and sort of wiggles as it floats through space. Someone posted it on one of the subs last week, but I cannot seem to find it. There's actually quite a few clips around that show translucent creatures floating in the sky. During the NASA tether incident, there seemed to be a swarm of them. This person left a link to Researchgate.net. There's a lot of websites on the internet. I checked the link and the website exists and looks credible, but I'm not qualified to say one way or another, so I'm leaving the link in this video's description for anyone that wants it. The next person offers a very unique explanation in their comment. My dad and I saw one of these, but we called it a worm. It was like a long, translucent worm flopping around in the sky. We found a YouTube video explaining it was like amino acids or something in the atmosphere. I can't remember exactly. I was young. I wish I could find that video again. So there's an alleged video here on YouTube that credits amino acids or protein building blocks with these translucent creatures in the sky. No one offered a link to this video. If you know the video this person was talking about, please link it in the comments and I will make it easy to find in this video's description and of course will credit you with finding it. The next commenter also believes these are spiritual beings and says, if you believe at all in angelic beings, many believe that they can take the form of dragons. Dragons are a common myth throughout most of all ancient mythologies. So who's to say ancient humans didn't see these creatures on a regular basis? I think we are reawakening to them. I almost didn't include this comment, but the interesting thing here is the symbolism of the snake does have many meanings because of how ancient people saw them as both positive and negative, depending on where you were. The World Health Organization symbol is a snake wrapped around a staff, a reference to the ancient Greek god of healing. Spiritual beings are often revealed using signs and symbols to communicate with people, so this could be noteworthy. The next commenter states, I've never seen anything like this, but there was a fascinating article in an old 14 Times issue, 2009, about multiple accounts of people seeing snakes just swimming through the sky. It was by a guy called Jerome Clark. A quick Google search produced this post about sky serpents. This commenter's link is also available in the description. When I visited the site and saw the article, my computer did tell me the connection with that specific website was not secure. So if you decide to visit that website, please be careful and do not enter any personal information, or especially any credit card information, or anything like that. I will put a note with the link so you know which one it is in case you'd rather not visit a site where your connection was not secured. Another Redditor wrote, Blue field entopic phenomenon and Charles Bennett syndrome could be explanation for some, but people who are seeing the same thing at night, I'm doubtful. I looked up blue field entopic phenomenon and it had a Wikipedia page that reads, Blue field entopic phenomenon is an entopic phenomenon characterized by the appearance of tiny dots, nicknamed blue sky sprites, moving quickly along squiggly lines in the visual field, especially when looking into a bright blue light such as the sky. The dots are short-lived, visible for a second or less, and travel short distances along seemingly random curvy paths. Some of them follow the same paths as predecessors. The dots may be elongated along the path like tiny worms. The speed of the dots varies in sync with the pulse. They briefly accelerate with each heartbeat. The dots are white blood cells moving into the capillaries in front of the retina of the eye. Blue light is absorbed by the red blood cells that fill the capillaries. The eye and brain edit out the shadow lines of the capillaries, partially by dark adaptation of the photoreceptors lying beneath the capillaries. The white blood cells, which are larger than red blood cells but much rarer, do not absorb the blue light, create gaps in the blood's column, and these gaps appear as bright dots. The gaps are elongated because a spherical white blood cell is too wide for the capillary. The red blood cells pile up behind the white blood cell, showing up like a dark tail. The behavior of the blood cells in the capillaries of the retina has been directly observed in human subjects by adaptive optic scanning laser ophthalmoscopy, a real-time imaging technique for examining retina blood flow. The dots will not appear at the very center of the visual field because there are no blood vessels in the foveal avascular zone. The science described here could be the science behind the amino acid explanation that we were introduced to earlier, and if it is, we can discredit this idea immediately. This anomaly depends on light being absorbed. Seeing these things in low light conditions means that what's being seen cannot be blue field entopic phenomenon. And lastly, these entities are called atmospherical beasts. They are not considered extraterrestrial or interdimensional, but living, breathing animals who appear in the upper atmosphere. These snake entities are a common sight. Another commonly reported beast looks like a gigantic jellyfish who floats through the air as a normal jellyfish flows through water. So for possible explanations, we have potential spiritual beings, a cloaked ship, could be government related, alien related, or somehow related to the Glimmer Man, sentient beings that might normally exist underwater or live in another dimension that on occasionally blends with ours. I considered this last theory the most because of how these creatures move and thought, what if these creatures are in a dimension with much more water and are actually swimming? I then wondered if that would even be necessary. This creature is being revealed as light, so I looked up the density of air and light. Air has a density of 1.225 kilograms per cubic meter. Light has a density of 0. It has no mass. A creature made of light, being less dense than the air, would float in Earth's atmosphere. The next problem I ran into is what stops it from floating away. So I looked up what allows fish to choose how deep they're swimming, and found this explanation. To stay at a particular level, a fish fills its bladder to the point at which it displaces a volume of water that weighs what the fish weighs. In this case, the forces of buoyancy and gravity cancel each other out, and the fish stays at the level. Most fish rise and sink using this method. If these are actual creatures made of light waves, they would only need an internal mechanism capable of holding air to keep themselves at a desired level. But that's just what I think. I know there's a lot of information in this video, but I would love to hear what you all think about these. Please let us all know your thoughts below. Don't be shy, no one of us knows as much as all of us. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider becoming a Patreon. $1 a month in the tip jar goes a long way towards making these videos. If you'd like to see more, you should check out our past episodes of True Encounters. And if you have your own true encounters you'd like to share with us, please use the email in the description. Until next time, you are very important, so remember to take good care of yourself.